Joan of Arc, French heroine. A devout peasant in medieval France named Joan of Arc thought that God had appointed her to lead France to victory in her protracted war with England. Despite having no prior military experience, Joan persuaded Charles of Valois, the crown prince, to let her command a French army to the beleaguered city of Orleans, where they won a spectacular victory. At the age of 19, Joan was arrested by hostile forces after witnessing the coronation of the prince as King Charles VII, tried for witchcraft, and burnt at the stake. Joan of Arc was regarded as one of history's greatest martyrs and the patron saint of France by the time she was canonized in 1920. Joan of Arc's early life. Jeanne d'Arc, sometimes known as Joan of Arc in English, was a tenant farmer's daughter from the town of Domremy in northeastern France who was born around 1412. Her devout mother, Isabelle Romy, fostered in her a great love for the Catholic Church and its doctrines, despite the fact that she was not taught to read or write. At the time, a bloody battle with England, later known as the 100 Years' War, that had seen England gain the upper hand had long ripped France asunder. Due to allegations of his illegitimacy, the French crown prince Charles of Valois was disinherited by a peace deal in 1420, and King Henry V assumed control over both France and England. In 1422, his son Henry VI succeeded him. A large portion of northern France was seized by England and its French allies under the leadership of Philip the Good, Duke of Burgundy, and many residents of Joan's village of Domremy were forced to flee their homes due to the danger of invasion. At the age of 13, Joan started hearing voices, which she understood to be messages from God giving her a task of great significance, to rid France of its adversaries and restore Charles as its legitimate monarch. Joan made a chastity vow as part of this holy mission. She persuaded a local court at the age of 16 that she should not be forced to accept the match after her father tried to arrange her marriage. The Siege of Orleans. Joan traveled to Vaucouleurs, a nearby bastion of Charles' supporters, in May 1428. She continued despite being initially turned down by the local magistrate, Robert de Baudricourt, and gained a small group of devotees who accepted her claims to be the Virgin who was destined to redeem France. When Baudricourt gave in, Joan cut her hair short and put on men's clothing to travel the 11 days across hostile country to Chinon, the location of the palace of the crown prince. Joan begged Charles for an army to lead to Orleans, which was then under English siege, and pledged to witness his coronation at Reims, the traditional location of the French royal investiture. Joan headed out to thwart the siege of Orleans in March of 1429 while wearing white armor and riding a white horse, against the advice of the majority of his advisors and generals. The Anglo-Burgundians were driven from their stronghold and forced to flee across the Loire River after Joan led multiple French assaults on them following the delivery of a defiant letter to the adversaries. Capture of Joan of Arc. Following such a stunning victory, Joan's reputation among French warriors gained widespread acclaim. She led Charles across hostile terrain to Reims with the help of her supporters, capturing towns that resisted with force and paving the way for his coronation as King Charles VII in July 1429. Joan suggested that the French should try to retake Paris in order to capitalize on their advantage, but Charles was hesitant since his favorite courtier, Georges de la Tremoille, cautioned him that Joan was gaining too much influence. In September, Joan launched an attack, but the Anglo-Burgundians were able to reinforce their defenses in Paris and repel it. The king gave Joan the assignment to repel a Burgundian assault on Compiègne in the spring of 1430. She was knocked off her horse and left outside the town's closing gates as she attempted to defend the town and its occupants. She was kidnapped by the Burgundians, who then paraded her to the Bouveoul castle in Rouen, which was occupied by the English commander. How did Joan of Arc die? Joan was ordered to answer to 70 charges against her in the subsequent trial, including witchcraft, heresy, and dressing as a man. The Anglo-Burgundians hoped to depose the young leader and discredit Charles, who owed his coronation to her. The French king made no attempt to negotiate Joan's release in order to distance himself from an accused heretic and witch. After a year in captivity and facing death, Joan agreed to sign a confession in which she denied ever receiving divine guidance. However, she defied authorities by wearing men's clothing again a few days later, and she was sentenced to death. Joan was taken to the old marketplace of Rouen on May 30, 1431, at the age of 19, and burned at the stake. Saint Joan of Arc. Her fame grew after her death, and a new trial ordered by Charles VII cleared her name 20 years later. Joan of Arc had achieved mythic status long before Pope Benedict XV canonized her in 1920, inspiring numerous works of art and literature over the centuries, including the classic silent film The Passion of Joan of Arc. Pope Pius X beatified Joan of Arc in the famous Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris in 1909. A statue of Jeanne d'Arc, who became the patron saint of France, honors her legacy in the cathedral.